Sign the papers, Michael. I've made my choice. Lena's voice was calm, but her eyes told another story. They were cold, distant, almost unrecognizable. Across the wide desk, Michael sat still, his hand frozen above the documents that marked the end of 12 years of marriage. The office was too quiet. The only sound was the slow tick of the clock behind him, counting down the last seconds of a love that once felt unbreakable. He looked up at her, his wife. The woman who used to laugh at his silly jokes, who danced barefoot in their kitchen when the rain fell, who once said he was her whole world. Now, she stood there like a stranger. Her arms folded, her chin raised, her diamond ring, the one he bought her with his first big paycheck, catching the light like it was mocking him. And next to her stood Ryan. Young, confident, smiling, too comfortable for a man who should have felt guilty. Ryan was one of his company's top employees, a bright mind with ambition and a smooth tongue. Michael had hired him himself, trusted him, mentored him. He never realized he was also inviting him into his home and into his wife's heart. Michael, Lena said again, her tone sharp now. Please, don't make this harder than it has to be. He looked at Ryan. So this is what you want? Ryan shifted slightly but didn't look away. We didn't plan this. It just happened. I love her, Michael. Michael almost laughed. Love. The word sounded so empty coming from him. No one in that room, not even Lena, knew the truth. They all thought Michael was just a mid-level investor, a quiet businessman with a few stakes in different companies. But in reality, Michael was the silent owner of a corporate empire that stretched across multiple industries, including the very company Ryan worked for. Ryan's paychecks, his promotions, his bonuses, every single one came from Michael's hands. The man Lena had left him for unknowingly worked under him. He finally picked up the pen. His signature was slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial. When the final stroke was done, he placed the pen down and whispered, "You're free, Lena." She exhaled, a long, relieved breath as if she had been holding it for years. "Thank you," she said softly, avoiding his eyes. She turned to Ryan, who reached for her hand. Together, they walked out of the room, leaving Michael alone with the silence and the faint scent of her perfume. For a long time, he didn't move. He just stared at the papers, his name beside hers, joined and broken in the same line of ink. Then, slowly, he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He felt pain, yes, but more than that, he felt something deeper. Not anger. Not even hatred. Resolve. That night, rain lashed against the windows of his penthouse. The city lights glowed faintly through the storm, blurring into streaks of gold and grey. Michael poured himself a glass of whiskey and sat by the window, watching the city below, the empire he had built in silence. He thought of Lena. Of how she used to wait up for him when he worked late, how she would fall asleep on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders. He remembered her saying once, "Money can't hold me, Michael. I need you." He thought he could give her everything she wanted, the house, the car, the comfort, but he forgot to give her himself. He admitted that much to himself. He had been too busy chasing security to notice he was losing love. But betrayal was something else entirely. He opened his laptop and accessed a private file, his master directory of all his companies. Subsidiaries. Shell corporations. Hidden investments. One of the names glared back at him, Prime Tech Innovations, the same company Ryan worked for. Michael leaned forward, eyes narrowing. So, his wife had left him for a man whose entire future depended on him. Fate had a strange sense of humor. He smiled faintly. "You've made your choice, Lena," he whispered. "Now, let's see where it leads you." Weeks passed. Lena and Ryan moved in together. Photos of them laughing over dinner began popping up online. She looked radiant, free, happy. Michael watched from a distance, unseen, unfazed. He wasn't interested in revenge, not yet. But he began making quiet moves behind the scenes. A small audit request. A delay in project funding. A sudden reshuffling of department heads. Nothing big enough to raise alarms, just small ripples, enough to disturb the water. Ryan began to feel the pressure at work. His team complained about budget cuts. A few of his projects stalled. He stayed late, came home tired, and slowly, his bright smile started to fade. Lena noticed. She didn't know what was wrong, and Ryan didn't dare tell her that things weren't as easy as he promised. Meanwhile, Michael watched from the shadows, calm and patient. He didn't have to lift a finger to destroy them. They were already setting their own trap, and they didn't even know it. Because every thread of their new life was still tied to him. And when the time came, all he had to do was pull. The sound of breaking glass echoed through Ryan and Lena's apartment. Ryan stood by the kitchen counter, his face pale, his hands trembling. The wine glass he dropped shattered across the marble floor. Lena flinched at the sound. "What's wrong with you?" she snapped, folding her arms. He didn't answer. His mind was somewhere else in the meeting he'd just walked out of. The look on the regional director's face still haunted him. Prime Tech's profits had taken a hit. 2 key contracts had been cancelled without warning, and the board was furious. Ryan had been called into a private meeting. He expected to be praised for his hard work. Instead, he was blamed. "I asked for more funding weeks ago," he'd said, trying to defend himself. The director's eyes had been cold. "That decision wasn't mine, Ryan. It came from above. From ownership." Ryan frowned. "Ownership? You mean the board?" "No," the director said quietly. "Higher than that. Someone above the board." The words kept replaying in his head. Someone above the board. But who? Now, at home, Lena stood watching him. "You've been acting strange lately," she said. "Is something going on at work?" Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "It's nothing. Just stress. They're cutting budgets. Delaying projects. It's chaos." He didn't want to admit how close he was to losing control or that the board had started questioning his performance. Lena sighed and walked over, resting her hand on his arm. "It'll be fine. You always figure things out." But this time, Ryan wasn't so sure. He managed a smile, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Yeah, I'll fix it." But deep down, he knew something wasn't right. Meanwhile, across town, Michael sat in his sleek office, scrolling through reports on his screen. Prime Tech's internal restructuring was moving perfectly. He had quietly shifted control of Ryan's department to another manager. He had reassigned contracts, rerouted client accounts, and frozen the budget Ryan depended on. To anyone else, it looked like simple corporate reorganization. To Michael, it was strategy, the kind that destroyed men without ever touching them. His assistant, Clara, entered the room. "Sir, the board meeting for Prime Tech is confirmed for Thursday. Will you attend under your own name or—" Michael smiled faintly. "Under Sterling Holdings. Keep my name out of it." "Yes, sir." When she left, he leaned back in his chair, staring at the city lights outside. He had no interest in watching Ryan crumble, not for the sake of revenge. But Lena's betrayal had opened a part of him he didn't know existed, a quiet hunger for justice. She had thrown away everything they'd built, convinced he was just another workaholic husband. She had no idea that he'd built an empire beneath her feet. Still, there was something inside him that wasn't just anger. There was sorrow. Because despite everything she'd done, he couldn't stop caring. Days turned into weeks. Lena began noticing small changes too. Ryan came home later and later. He avoided her eyes when she asked about work. His temper was short, his smile forced. One night, she found him sitting on the couch long after midnight, staring at his laptop. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. He didn't look up. "I think someone's targeting me." "Targeting you? At work?" He nodded. "I don't know who, but it's like every decision I make is being undone. Every deal I close, something happens to cancel it. It's like someone's pulling strings from above." Lena frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Why would anyone do that?" Ryan looked up at her, eyes weary. "Because someone wants me gone." She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "You'll figure it out. You always do." But her voice trembled, not out of fear for Ryan's career, but because a small, unsettling thought had started growing in her mind. Michael. She hadn't spoken to him since the divorce. He had been calm, too calm, almost emotionless. He hadn't fought her. He hadn't argued. He'd just let her go. It didn't feel normal. It felt planned. Could he be behind this? No, she told herself. Michael wasn't like that. He was quiet, gentle, too proud to stoop so low. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling. The next morning, curiosity won. She opened her laptop and searched for information about PrimeTech's ownership. It wasn't easy to find. The company was held under layers of shell corporations and private investors. But after an hour of digging, one name stood out on a legal document: Sterling Holdings. The moment she saw it, her stomach twisted. Sterling. That was the same name Michael had once mentioned, the same company he'd built quietly, years ago. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the files. Could it be? Was her ex-husband the real owner behind PrimeTech, the very company where Ryan worked? She felt her chest tighten. The room suddenly felt smaller. If that was true, then Michael wasn't just sitting back. He was watching. And everything that had been happening, the contracts, the stress, the chaos, it wasn't bad luck. It was him. Her pulse quickened. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What have I done?" That night, as Ryan slept, Lena sat alone in the dark, staring at her phone. Her thumb hovered over Michael's number. She hadn't deleted it. She never could. Part of her wanted to call to ask, to beg, to understand. But another part knew that once she opened that door, there would be no turning back. Because if Michael really owned the company, then she hadn't just betrayed a husband. She had betrayed the man who still held the power to destroy everything she now loved. Lena couldn't stop shaking. 4 days, her mind refused to rest. Every night she lay awake beside Ryan, staring at the ceiling, replaying the same haunting thought over and over again. What if Michael really owned the company? It sounded crazy, unbelievable, even. But the more she thought about it, the more it made sense. Ever since the divorce, Michael had disappeared quietly. No calls, no messages, no drama. He didn't fight for her, didn't beg, didn't even ask why. He just let her go, like he had already made peace with it. But what if that silence had been the calm before the storm? She told herself she was being paranoid. Michael wasn't cruel. He wasn't the type to hurt someone, even after being betrayed. But something inside her whispered a truth she didn't want to face. He wasn't the same man anymore. Ryan's patience was wearing thin. Every week brought new problems at work, delayed projects, cancelled budgets, sudden audits. His team complained, his boss avoided his calls, and no one could explain why everything was going wrong at once. One night, he came home late, his tie half loosened, his eyes dark and tired. He dropped his briefcase on the couch and said, "They're turning the company upside down, Lena. It's like someone's playing a game with me." Lena looked up from the dining table. Maybe it's not personal. Maybe it's just business trouble. Ryan laughed bitterly. Business trouble? No. Someone's pulling strings. Someone with power. Every project I touch falls apart. Every meeting ends badly. It's like someone wants me gone. She froze. Because deep down, she already had a name for that someone. Michael. She swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "You're overthinking it, Ryan. Just focus. Things will settle." But even as she said it, her hands were shaking. The next morning, Lena couldn't take it anymore. She opened her laptop and started searching. At first, nothing. PrimeTech's ownership records were hidden behind shell companies and complicated legal layers. But she didn't give up. She knew how Michael operated, quiet, discreet, always in the shadows. After hours of digging, her screen finally froze on one familiar name, Sterling Holdings. Her heart dropped. That was his. Michael Sterling. The moment she saw it, she knew. He was behind PrimeTech. Behind everything. The man she divorced, the man she betrayed, was the silent owner of the very company Ryan worked for. Her pulse raced. Her breath came fast. If this was true, then Michael wasn't just letting her go. He was watching. He was controlling everything. That afternoon, Lena found herself driving to his building. She didn't plan it. Her body just moved. The drive felt endless. Every stoplight made her heart beat faster. When she stepped into the lobby, the receptionist smiled politely. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Sterling." That name hit her like a slap. Mrs. Sterling. For a moment, she forgot she wasn't anymore. The elevator ride to the 27th floor felt like years. When the doors opened, she saw him through the glass wall, sitting at his desk, calm, collected, like the world had never touched him. He looked up when she entered. Their eyes met. It was the first time she'd seen him since the divorce. "Lena," he said softly. "This is unexpected." She hesitated. I needed to ask you something." He gestured for her to sit. "Go ahead." Her voice shook. "Do you own Prime Tech?" Michael leaned back, his expression unreadable. "Why do you ask?" "Because Ryan's career is falling apart," she said, tears gathering in her eyes. "Everything is collapsing. I just need to know if you're behind it." He was silent for a moment. Then he smiled faintly, not cruelly, but with a kind of quiet sadness. "Lena," he said finally, "I own a lot of things. I built my life on patience and planning. But tell me something, when you walked away, did you ever think about what that cost me?" Her breath caught. "I lost my home," he continued softly. "My trust. My peace. You didn't just leave, Lena, you ripped apart everything I was building. And now, you come back asking if I'm the reason your new life is falling apart." She started, but he held up his hand. He stood and walked to the window, his voice steady. "Maybe the world doesn't need me to destroy you, Lena. Maybe it just knows how to balance itself." She stared at him, tears streaming down her face. His words weren't a confession, but she didn't need one. She understood. He wasn't admitting guilt, he didn't have to. He was letting the truth hang in the air like smoke. The man standing in front of her wasn't the one she had left. He wasn't broken anymore. He was powerful, unreachable, cold. As she walked out of his office, her heart felt like it would burst. She got into her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The city blurred through her tears. How had it come to this? The man she had betrayed now held everything, her past, her lover's future, her peace of mind. And deep inside, she knew the cruelest truth of all. Michael didn't even need revenge. His silence was enough to break her. Have you ever realized too late that the person you hurt still had the power to change your life? Think about it and tell me what you'd do if you were in Lena's place. Lena didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the apartment felt too loud, the ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, Ryan's restless breathing beside her. She kept seeing Michael's face in her mind. Calm, steady, almost haunting. The way he spoke, so quiet, so controlled. It terrified her more than if he had shouted. Because silence meant he wasn't angry anymore. It meant he was certain. By morning, she made a decision. She had to tell Ryan. He deserved to know the truth even if it destroyed everything. When Ryan came into the kitchen, his tie in hand, she said it straight out. "Michael owns Prime Tech." He froze. "What?" She swallowed hard. "I found the documents. Sterling Holdings, that's him. Michael Sterling. He's been behind it all this time." Ryan's face went pale. No, that's impossible. He's your ex-husband. Why would he?" "Because of me," she said quietly. "Because of what I did." Ryan stepped back, disbelief flooding his face. "You think he's doing all this to get back at you?" She nodded slowly. "He doesn't need to do anything directly. He just waits. And everything around us falls apart." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. "So what? You're saying my whole career, my entire life has been a joke? That your ex has been pulling the strings all along?" Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know, Ryan. I swear I didn't. He turned sharply. You brought this into my life, Lena. You. She flinched. His voice cracked with frustration. I worked my way up for years, and now you're telling me it was his company all along? Do you realize what that means? He grabbed his jacket and stormed out before she could answer. Lena stood frozen, the echo of the slammed door ringing through the apartment. Hours later, Michael sat in a conference room at PrimeTech headquarters, reviewing a new merger proposal. His assistant knocked softly. Sir, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. Michael didn't look up. Who is it? The door opened. Ryan. The younger man stepped inside, anger written all over his face. You've been playing me. Michael finally looked up. Sit down. I'm not sitting down, Ryan snapped. You've been controlling everything, my career, my projects, my reputation. All this time, I worked for you. You made me look like a fool. Michael leaned back in his chair, calm as ever. You made yourself look like a fool. I only watched. Ryan's hands curled into fists. You think this is a game? Michael stood, eyes cold. A game? No. Just balance. You took what wasn't yours. My wife, my trust. I gave you work, opportunity, and you repaid it by taking everything I loved. Ryan's anger faltered, replaced by guilt, but only for a moment. You can destroy me, Michael, he said bitterly. But she'll never love you again. Michael's face didn't change. I know. Ryan blinked. Then why do this? Because she needed to understand, Michael said softly. And so did you. He turned away, his voice lower now. You can go, Ryan. You're fired. Not as revenge, as release. You don't belong here anymore. Ryan hesitated, then left without another word. That evening, Lena showed up at Michael's office again. Her eyes were red from crying. I know you fired him, she said quietly. Michael didn't deny it. He'll find another job. Somewhere I don't own. Her voice cracked. You've punished him enough. You've punished me enough. He looked at her for a long moment. Lena, I never punished you. You did that yourself. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought you didn't care anymore. I stopped trying to make you love me, he said. That's not the same thing as not caring. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city lights flickered outside the window, painting their reflections in gold and grey. Finally, Michael said softly, you once told me I was never present. Maybe you were right. I gave you the world but not myself. I can't change that now. Lena stepped closer, her voice trembling. So what now? Is this how our story ends? Michael gave a small, sad smile. Our story ended the day you walked away. This is just the epilogue. She closed her eyes, nodding through the tears. I'm sorry, Michael. He looked at her, really looked, and said the one thing she didn't expect. I forgave you a long time ago. That broke her completely. As she turned to leave, Michael watched her go, the woman he had built his world around, the woman who had once been his reason for everything. He didn't feel anger or revenge, only peace. Because finally, everything made sense. Sometimes, letting go isn't about weakness. It's about understanding that revenge doesn't heal, it only keeps you tied to the pain. And Michael was finally ready to live without it. Have you ever realized that sometimes, forgiveness is the most powerful revenge of all? Tell me what you think. Was Michael right to let go, or should he have made them feel the pain he did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, share it so others can feel it too. Wherever you're watching from, thank you for being part of this story.